Disordinati is a podcast by Chiara Natalie Focacci about the choices, circumstances, and quirks that make us who we are, across words seen and unseen.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm blessed by having an amazing composer and pianist, Tigran Hamasyan. Hello, Tigran.
Hi.
Lovely to see you. Your music is objectively mesmerizing. It's also subjectively mesmerizing because I personally love it. And let's start from where it all began. When did you realize that you could play the piano? Did you have any relatives, any friends or family that sort of influenced you and you realized, okay, I can do it, as a job?
We both my parents and my grandparents had a piano, so I grew up with the piano in the house. None of my nobody in the family really played professionally. Um, but my father, is a and was a big classic rock, heavy rock fan. And I had an uncle who was a jazz fan. So I grew up with a lot of different music around the house. And my grandparents had a big collection of vinyls of classical music. And so I grew up also with that. So, but yeah, piano, I guess it was the instrument that was at close proximity. So I would just try to play whatever I heard, all these, Led Zeppelin records or Herbie Hancock, and try to, imitate it on the piano. And that's where it all began.
That's amazing. You also come from a magical land and sacred space, a land of culture, which is Armenia. How much of your Armenian roots are absorbed in your music?
Probably a lot. I mean, once since I discovered folk music and also Armenian folk music, I kind of it sort of became part of my musical language. But yeah, it's um, I would say it's the hardest thing to do, or the hardest journey you could take to kind of um, make music that has some kind of a basis of folk music or an influence, but the influence is not probably not the right word because it has to be not just the seasoning, but you have to go deep into it to understand, to actually be free in this music and create something that's personal. So that personal thing is what really uh, matters and is the key thing in this in the journey of trying to make folk music yours, I guess. Um, because there's a lot of um, kitsch and cliche things happening with folk music from around the world where they just, people just put a few hip harmonies and like tasteless, arrangements, and even if it's a cool arrangement, like it's it's very rare to find something that you don't notice that it's the folk music is at the basis, but it's much more layered, and not obvious. So that's something that's, yeah, for me, it's a journey that will continue probably until at the end of my life, trying to um, understand that music.
Yeah. The languages in general are very fascinating, and I always quote the Inferno of Dante Alighieri, who said that hell is a place where people speak different languages. And the language of music is a language per se, so I can only imagine how difficult it must be to put all these languages together and make them dialogue together.
Right.
So you are, you are a man of out of the ordinary talent, obviously, but you also do out of the ordinary things. Like, do you want to share the story of this piano that was airlifted on top of these beautiful Armenian mountains? Why did you do it?
Well, the simple answer is to connect people um, that live in this land and forget how what treasure we have, to connect people with the land, because it's a really remote place, and it's this mountain in the background, very close to where the concert was, which is more, it's a mountain, very old mountain, like 200 million years or something. And it's really considered kind of a sacred place, but people um, in Armenia these days, they really lost touch with nature. I feel like, I mean, it's a global thing, but especially here, because yeah, people don't really have that care towards nature. So that was the idea, really, to bring people to the nature and have the music outside, like with this mountains in the background. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so going to a sort of primordial state and connecting with nature and just having the music as the only language. And I imagine people could only listen to your concert if they actually hiked to the mountains.
Yes, that was the beautiful thing, because it's it was very hard to it is still very hard to get to that place where the concert was.
Yeah.
So unless you have like your front and back wheels drivers, you can't really get up there. So a lot of people like took 1 hour and a half around there to reach this place, and the concert was at 9:05 a.m. So people really, it was like really like a pilgrimage,
Yeah.
Um, so it was really touching to see people really hiking like on the way to this concert.
Yeah. And you waiting on top of them, so giving them, this paradisiac experience. So your music is very eclectic, and when I stop it, when the song stops on my Spotify, I always feel like it's going to continue somewhere else. So it's a sort of like has a life of its own. And in your CD, Luis Illuso, Light from Light, you combine Armenian sacred music, traditional, contemporary, classical composition. They all come together. And I was wondering, what is the role of improvisation in that?
That's a very good question. Basically, I've never written any of the piano parts down. Nothing is written. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I prepared and I could write it out. But the whole idea was to write out everything for the choir. And then once I did it, I was like, okay, what am I going to play?
Yeah.
So it was a nice journey in that way, because of course it didn't just come. I didn't just write the scores for the choir just in a few weeks. I'm not really a classical composer, even though I compose um, for formats that classical, academic composers compose. But at the same time, it took me like about 6 months of working with the choir, writing things and trying things, and also understanding what I would do. So it was really a really nice journey, and I had the luxury to actually have that much time spent with the choir and exploring different things. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big place for improvisation in that project, especially for me. And there were, unfortunately, there are a couple singers in this choir that also came from sort of a traditional background,
Mhm.
so they could also improvise. And so there's a couple tracks on the record where say this incredible singer Tigran Hamasyan has was also improvising, because they could just improvise on that mode.
Yeah.
Not only a few guys can really do it in from that classical world. Um, Sadly, Seiran passed away few years after we finished this project. But yeah, a lot of improvisation, yes, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It would be fantastic if like each CD that was recorded was ad personam, so everyone who received it had a different improvised track on the CD.
Right.
You've played with some of the greatest musicians of our time, you obviously being one of them. For instance, Mark Turner, Joshua Redman, Brad Meldau. What does it mean for you to collaborate with other creatives, and what originates from this collaboration, and how do you find create your own musical language?
Um, well, there are just, I don't know, I can't really explain why I, let's say, like somebody, a music of certain music and I don't like certain music. It's something that is very personal. But I know that I would love to like collaborate with this musician once I've heard the music. Um, and also somehow the world brings us together, it's never like whenever it's too much effort that's put into like trying to make a collaboration, it always ends up being kind of something boring. So I'm very careful with that these days. But of course, there are incredible musicians that I've collaborated with, and I'm planning to collaborate. That I really would love to explore what would come out.
Yeah.
Like such as like there's a saxophone player from Norway, Trygve Seim. Like we have a really special connection, and hopefully we'll do a record together. Um, yeah, there's yeah, and for example, Arman Natsakanyan is drummer from that plays in my band
Mhm.
right currently. Yeah, I mean, I've known him since he was like 17 years old. But then he's the same drummer that is also has played in that concert in the mountains.
Yeah.
And that was our first concert ever.
Wow.
So there's people that, just really like understand, we speak the same language, we really share the same vision. And then also we grow together. That's another thing. Once we kind of have a common ground, it's a great place because then we actually, especially for a band, when you call something like a band is different than just playing with somebody and then
Yeah.
moving on, like which is very common thing in jazz. It's great, great to be able to just improvise with anybody at any moment. But there is also the other side of it where you choose musicians and you build something like long term together. And you can feel that when all these great trios or like even in jazz, like Keith Jarrett trio, Brad Meldau trio, you listen to it, there's nothing like it. It's not just Brad Meldau playing with some people, but he's playing with these musicians with whom he developed something very special. So
Yeah.
that's the idea for me also to kind of like think long term
Yeah.
whenever I collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. What are some of your inspirations that come from it doesn't necessarily need to be music. Obviously, you're inspired by a lot of different music. And if you can share with us, I don't know, classical, medieval, jazz, rock, contemporary music that inspires you, but also the literature or the cinema. I don't know, whatever form of art comes into your music.
Honestly, a lot of things inspire me. Well, if we just talk about music, specific jazz, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, um, Keith Jarrett for sure, Chick Corea, Brad Meldau. These are just Miles Davis, obviously. But yeah, non-jazz, but also, for example, Jan Garbarek, who's somebody that hopefully one day I will maybe. My dream is to sort of have a chance to play with him, because that's a musician that's in my. I think there's probably every other day I listen to Jan. Like his playlist is like the most played playlist on my on my playlists. He's just on another level with especially with the melodic content that he uses from Norway and other that he's influenced from other cultures from around the world. But I'm also influenced by specific rock bands, metal bands like Meshuggah, Tool, um, but also contemporary classical music and also, classical music. For example, Ligeti, Gili Ligeti, um, um, some some music from early music, like medieval music from Europe, like Perrotin, Leonin, like the French school, Notre Dame school, which is where basically polyphony was born. So that's something that really fascinates me, and I'm a huge fan. Also, like Guillaume de Machaut, who's an incredible composer and poet from 14th century, and also later Renaissance music from Europe, like Orlando di Lassus or Josquin de Prez, or Francesco Landini, for example. I'm actually just learning a few pieces currently of music from that particular 14th and 15th century Europe. Well, that's something that I constantly listen to. Also, of course, Armenian folk music and also religious music, liturgies. Um, but not only Armenian, also, for example, Byzantine music, also from that period. I was just listening to kind of trying to find some harmonies for this 9th century, I believe, composer who wrote hymns. Her name is Cassia. She's one of the most prolific, I guess, or yeah, composers from that area. It was also a woman that survives anything from that period. So some incredible hymns out there, and yeah, what else? Some electronica music, but very specific things. I really like, for example, Chris Clark is an electronic composer who's incredible. Flying Lotus, Hudson Mohawk, also bands like Efterklang, Danish band, incredible band. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you hold space in your head for all of this music? You probably have a box for each of the different styles, and it must be an infinite space.
Yeah, honestly, it just kind of all merges together because at the end of the day, it's even though it sounds like a lot, but there's only like very few things, for example, that I like in metal music. And there's only like very few things I like in electronica music,
Yeah.
And same goes for all these genres. There's like for specific things that I like, and they're all somehow connect, all the different genres.
Yeah. It's a common thread, and you're very selective, obviously. And
Right, right.
you mentioned the Renaissance. I'm from Florence, so that's all we talk about is Renaissance. But I'm also half Austrian, and I've always lived between two cultures. And now, I've lived in 8 different countries. I'm in the UK now, so it's a lot of like exposure to different traditions, different languages, dialects, and so on, and also different foods. So I was wondering, because you obviously live between Italy, the US, Armenia, you travel a lot everywhere. How is your experience of that, of being a sort of traveler of the world? And also, what is your favorite food is something I'm very interested in.
Hmm. I love traveling, and discovering new cultures. I love that, and there's so always something exciting about it, and always kind of more about your culture once you discover other cultures. If you go deep into it and you start appreciating your own culture. So I love that. But at the same time, I also need to be grounded
Mm.
and stay in one place. Um, my favorite food, um, um, I don't know. There's specific things I like in different cuisines from different
Like the
countries.
music. It's like
Yeah,
the
it's like the
music.
music. Mm, I love Japanese food. I love um, well, obviously I love Italian food for sure. Um, and I also yeah, I love also, for example, Thai foods,
Mm.
um, South Asian.
You're
That's
making me hungry. Okay,
yeah,
we should stop talking about food.
yeah. And
Last question.
Armenian is,
Sorry.
something that's I'm used to, but if I need to not eat Armenian food for a while to like,
Yeah.
then I like specific things.
Yeah. It's always the same. I always move a bit further away from Italy to appreciate Italy. So I guess
Right.
it's the same with food. Last question. So I'm a big fan of crows. I love birds. I think they're magical creatures, and I'm always fascinated by the fact that they live in a infinite space. They just navigate this infinite space. And one of your big recent projects is called The Bird of a Thousand Voices. Can you tell us a bit more about this magical bird? Who is this bird?
Um, it's a bird that's basically um, represents the divine realm, the some like a messenger from God, basically, or the connection to the divine, so it's a metaphor. If you follow and find this bird, then you can bring salvation, or you can bring harmony to the world. So it's that. I mean, it really signifies the spiritual realm, and it's not only in Armenian, this specific tale, which is Armenian tale, but the bird itself really like represents the heavenly realm in a lot of different cultures. There's at the core of this tale is there's one little episode which a lot of scientists like that have done any research on this, they really say that it's at least a 5,000-year-old segment of a 5,000-year-old Indo-European myth. So basically, it's a traveler or a knight or whatever is on his journey. He finds a tree and like falls asleep under the tree, and he wakes up, and he sees there's a serpent coming from the ground up to the top of the tree where all the birds are, the nestlings. So he wakes up and cuts the serpent, and the serpent goes down again. And so this is basically, the serpent signifies the underworld, and where the humans are in between that.
Yeah.
And the heavenly realm is the birds, and the tree is the tree of life. So it's and it's really interesting because it's just a little story in this big tale, and it's so I really love these ancient tales or fairy tales because they have first of all, they have many historical layers, and also contain a lot of important information, and they're really like guidance to spiritual discipline, I would say, understanding yourself, understanding the world.
Yeah, and we need these tales to survive this realistic world that sometimes is a bit too it's not too magical, so we need these tales as well. Tigran, it's been really a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure.